Om Namah Pranavartaya Shuddha Jnanaika Nirmalaya Prasantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Sankaram Lokasankaram Arunagiri Mupetam Sachidanandamurtim Ramanayiti Prithivyam Vishrutam Jnanasuryam Gahana Hridaya Vidyam Leelaya Bodhayantam Satatamaham Sadgurum Samsmarami. Humble pranams. In our study of Anma Bodham, we are going to the next section, which is about the three bodies and also the five koshas and so on. This is going to begin a new kind of treatment to Advaita Vedanta. So what I thought was, till now, whatever we have seen, we will have a quick recap of all those shlokas, starting from the first shloka. Atma Bodham is a prakarana grantham. What it means is it is a foundational text. All the basic ideas of Advaita Vedanta are covered in this, and there are other prakarana granthas like Viveka Chudamani and so on. This is one of the last works that Bhagavan undertook. He translated this in 1948, and afterwards no other work was done by him, no other composition was done by him. So that's why it gains some kind of a significance. And he did it on his own without anybody prompting him. Is another great thing. He begins by saying that it is the same Shankara who revealed it earlier in Sanskrit is now revealing it through me in Tamil. With that he begins. That is his Mangala Shlokam. The first Shlokam of Shankara's Atma Bodham is the target audience who are qualified to learn this Atma Bodham. And Shankara says, those who have purified their minds with mental discipline. He uses the word tapas. Basically, it is a mental discipline. Purification of the mind is important in order to understand these profound truths. An impure mind in the sense a mind that is always involved, engrossed in these worldly activities, will not be able to appreciate this truth. So he begins with that. The eligibility is purification. A purified mind is required. And people should be, who are trying to understand Atma Bodham, should be peaceful, without any mental agitation, free from desires, and there should be an intense desire for moksha. This is very important. Unless this intense desire is there, it's not possible for us to really grasp these profound truths and live them in our lives. It's not just grasping intellectually, but one should be able to bring it to our lives and then live it. And then he talks about the primacy of knowledge or jnanam. Jnanam is the only direct means for liberation, he says. This is in the second and third shlokas. This primacy of knowledge is covered. He says, Bodho hi sakshat moksha sadhanam. Sakshat moksha sadhanam. Bhagavan in his translation, he says, Arivonre ner mukti sadhanam. This is a direct path. And then the metaphor that is given, this book is full of metaphors. All daily, whatever we see in our daily life, those things are taken as examples, and then in order to explain profound truths, these examples are given. So the metaphor that is given is Pakasya Vannivat. That is, if you want to do cooking, Agni is important, fire is important, or any heating source is important. Without that, it is not possible to do any cooking. So he says, as important as fire is to cooking, so important is knowledge for mukti. And then in the third shloka, he says, action, that is karma, cannot destroy ignorance. Action cannot destroy ignorance because action is not inimical to ignorance. Unless you have an enemy, it's not possible to conquer this. And action is not inimical, mainly because action gives you the feeling of the kartritva bhava. You have a feeling that you are doing something to get something. So as long as this bhavam is there, this doership bhavam is there, it will only increase the ignorance and not going to destroy it. So don't go to karma. If you want, so many things in life, you can do karma. Even putra kameshti agam can be performed to get a son. That was done. But not for jnanam. There is no jnana kameshti agam anywhere. There is no prescription. Doing karma, you will be able to get jnanam. He emphasizes this very clearly. And then he says, he gives this example. If you want to destroy darkness, eliminate darkness, you have to take light. That's the only way. Darkness being an absence of an entity. It is not an entity at all. It is absence of something. So if you really want to handle darkness, you need to manipulate the opposite of darkness, which is light. Unless you manipulate light, darkness cannot be really eliminated. If you want darkness, you switch off the light. If you want light, switch on the light and then eliminate the darkness. So that example he gives, metaphor he gives in the importance of, jnanam as against any other path. Oli antakara kumbai olikumaru, he says in his translation. The fourth and fifth verses are about the illusion of limitation. He says, we feel limited as a jiva. We feel limited. We are limited in space. We are limited in time. We are limited in so many things. This limitation itself is an illusion. There is no limitation at all. You have just put on these limitations to yourself. So he says, Atma appears as hidden only because of the veiling effect of avidya. Atma is there all the time. Jnanam is there all the time. You don't have to really freshly gain jnanam. That's one important thing about Advaita Vedanta. They say you don't have to, whatever you are seeking is already there. Once you know this and you are convinced about it, your method of sadhana will get changed. Now the idea is all our efforts will be to remove the ignorance and not to get jnana. In a lighter vein, they talk about Advaita Vedanta. They say Advaita Vedanta gives you what you already have and it takes away what never was with you, what was never with you. So that is the interesting thing to know is what you need to do is you have been focusing your attention on the wrong things. You turn your focus and you direct it to the correct location in order to get jnanam, not getting involved in this worldly affairs. It is already there. The only thing is you are not noticing it. It has been covered up because you are not noticing it. Noticing it is what is important. The sadhana is actually noticing this consciousness that is throbbing all the time within. But we are caught up by the things that are illuminated by the consciousness, but not consciousness itself. We take that for granted. So that is the main focus, the main purpose of all this sadhana, he says. Parichinna iva ajnanati iva, he says. It looks as though it is hidden. Atma looks as though that it is hidden only because we are not looking at it in the proper place. That's what it says. When this illusion goes, Atma is relieved. And he gives the example of Megho payem shumaniva. Amshuman, the Aditya, the sun, it is hidden as though by these clouds. You will feel that there is no sun at all. But once the clouds go, sun gets revealed. And as far as the sun was concerned, it never saw anything other than itself. All the time it was shining. Only we saw, from our viewpoint, it was hidden and it has been removed when the clouds moved away. And this is exactly what happens when ignorance is removed. When the ignorance is removed and the self is revealed, then it is not anything that was not there with you. It was all along, it has been with you. So much so that a jnani who has got this revelation, he says there was never any ignorance. That is the feeling of a jnani. There was never any ignorance because of the revelation of sun, and all the time it has been shining within me. And he says in the fifth shloka, constant practice of self-knowledge, jnanabhyasam, is needed to clear away the stains of ignorance, constant practice of jnana abhyasam. And the effort that you make to clear jnanam, that effort also becomes an effortless thing later on, because the effort, which is called as the vritti jnanam, that vritti jnanam also gets destroyed. It removes itself. The activity of attending to the self also ceases at that time, and the self is all the time shining, and there is no effort needed any longer at that point in time. And he gives the example again of, that they used to use a cleansing powder in the olden days when there is muddy water. They would use this cleansing powder called as Kathakarenu, Tetram body in Tamil. This tetram body, when it is put in a glass of water, a jar of water, all the muddy water, they all get coagulated and the dust settles at the bottom. Along with this powder that was thrown into it, along with it, it takes all the other dirt and then leaves clear water. Similarly, this jnana abhyasam works in this manner. The thought of trying to get the Atman, it is a thought, a very subtle thought. And that vritti also gets pulled down and that also gets dissolved, gets resolved in self. And then finally, there is an effortless feeling of the self. So he says, and this is the jnana abhyasam is required all the time. Vinirmalam kritva jnanam swayam nasyet. Vritti jnanam swayam nasyet. That is the thing. And the sloka 6 to 9, he talks about the unreality of the world. The world of raga dvesha is merely a projection. It does not really exist. It's just a projection. Projection because it is ragam and dvesham. Our desires is what make this world. Where do the desires come? Because we do not know that our very nature is bliss. We seek happiness outside in the form of desires. Fulfillment of desire would give us this happiness is what we think, forgetting the fact that we are blissful by nature, very nature. And in the process of this fulfilling the desire, the ragas and the dveshas, they create a world for you. You go after it and you are not going to be satisfied all the time. Sometimes there is fulfillment, sometimes there is no fulfillment. We are not going to be satisfied with the whole process. So he says, this world of raga dvesha is merely a projection. And then he gives the example of a dream. Swapna tulyavat. It is like a dream. This wakeful world is like a dream. While the dream is going on, you are not going to question the dream at all. You are going to think that everything is fine, and then you are okay with the reality projected in the dream. It is only after you wake up, you are going to doubt the dream. Similarly, the jnani who has woken up from this dream called as these worldly affairs, he also thinks that there is nothing that is significant in this world. There is nothing that is real in this world. He has gotten hold of that highest reality, Paramartha Satyam. Then he does not bother about this worldly Satyam at all. This Vyavharika Satyam is nothing to him. So while it happens, it looks to be very real. So he says, Viruppu Verupadi Vikara Samsarat Iruppu Kanavukku Inayam. It is just like dream. Nothing more than a dream. The world appears real only as long as the Adhara Satyam, the substratum, is unrecognized. That is the next verse, verse number 7. This world appears real only as long as this Adhara Satyam, the substratum, is not recognized. And he gives the metaphor of a silver on an oyster shell. You see, walking on the beach, suddenly you see at a distance there is something looking like a silver coin. You run towards that, only to find that it is after all a shell which is reflecting the sunshine. They also give this other example of a snake on a rope. When there is not much of a light on a rope, it looks as though that it is a snake, and you are filled with fear and you move away from the snake. There is no snake there at all. But the snake, for it to really appear, something is required which is real. The rope is real and the snake is unreal. But for this unreality to be seen, there must be something that is real which is different from that entity. snake is the unreal projection, and then rope is the real Adhara Satyam. Till you see the rope, the appearance of the snake is not going to leave from your mind. So he says, see this world and see the substratum of this world. Then only this world will stop bothering you. As long as you do not know the reality behind this world, the world will continue to bother you. Sometimes it will give you pleasure, and most of the times it will give you suffering only. That is the loka niyati, that is the way things are. So he says, look behind this satyam is not really a real thing. Adhara satyam, you need to look at what is the substratum. And the sloka 8 says, every object, every living being, every structure of the universe is projected from sustain and then back, resolves back into the absolute reality. And he gives the example of those water bubbles, the bubbles in a water body. The bubbles are not different from water, but they come out of water. And for some time it looks as though there is some reality of something there, different shapes and sizes are there of this bubble. But ultimately, it is only water. Similarly, he says, everything that has come out of this Brahman is only Brahman. For a short period of time, it looks as though that there are individuals, they are different from each other, but they finally resolve back into Brahman. Waves, the different sizes and shapes of waves, wave is nothing but only water. So ultimately, all of us, everything that you see is made of only that stuff, and that stuff alone is reality. All other things will have to finally resolve back into that. Names and forms are unreal. The unchanging substance underlying them alone is real. Is the same truth being conveyed with a different metaphor, and he gives the metaphor of the gold and the ornaments. There are no two things. We make a gold ornament of gold, any kind, any shape, any different, so many different designs of these ornaments, they're all ultimately only gold. There are no two things there. There's only gold. The different shapes and sizes are unreal, but the Adhara Vastu, the one that is permeating all these things, that is only gold alone. Nothing but gold. So this is non-duality being taught straight away in a very simple metaphor. They give you the Advaitic principle. As I said, if there are two things, then I can say that let me keep the necklace, you take the gold. There are no two things there. Gold is necklace and necklace is gold. Don't look at them as two different things. Similarly, we should be able to see everything that is created in this world as only himself, not different from him. Our mind should be trained to look at all these things in that manner. Swarupa Laksham is mentioned in this particular thing. Hatake Kataka Adiva. Tannidatu Tondrum Characharangal Tannai Odithu Anniyamo. This is a question that Muruganar asks in Guruvachaka Kovai for this particular, very close to this verse. And the 10th and the 11th verses are about the conditioning of the self. The supreme reality, the 10th verse says, the supreme reality appears divided due to limiting conditions or upadhis. It appears to be divided, but there is only one consciousness everywhere. It is not distributed high or low. It's all the same. Everything has the same consciousness, whether it is Brahma, or whether it is ant. It is the same consciousness. There is no difference in the consciousness. It appears, and then he gives the example. With this example, we are able to see the real truth behind the whole thing. All pervasive space appears divided. When you have a smaller vessel or a bigger vessel or a small room or a big room, the space is the same everywhere. There are some artificial constructs like these walls. Once you pull down these walls, it's all only the same space. Can the space above Tiruvannamalai be different from the space above Bombay? Actually, there was a question that was asked to Nisargadatta Maharaj. Some devotee asked Maharaj, by that time Bhagavan had passed away. Because Maharaj's teachings were so remarkably close to what Bhagavan was teaching. So this devotee asked Nisad that Maharaj, if you were to meet Ramana Maharshi, what would you say? He says, for that he gives this example. He is an unread man, he is an illiterate person, but he gives this example. He says, when the space above Bombay meets the space above Tiruvannamalai, what will these two spaces talk to each other about? It's the same. That is the vision that we should develop. So, the all-pervasive space appears divided by these upadhis that we artificially construct. Remove the upadhis, and what you will see is that one space alone, pervading everywhere. And then he says on the 11th sloka, which we saw last week, upadhis are the reason for differences like jati, varna, ashrama. They are all imagined in Shuddha Atma, like taste or color that is there in water. Water by itself is very pure. But you say a colored water, you say it's water with a different taste kind of a thing. They're all added on. They're not real. What is real is the water alone. So the upadhis are imagined and the underlying reality is only one. All these differences are just imagined, says. So this is a recap of whatever we have seen so far, all these shlokas. We'll go to the next shloka. As I said, this is about from now onwards, it is going to be about the three bodies and the five koshas and so on and so forth. The 12th shloka, Panchikrita Mahabhuta Sambhavam Karma Sanchitam Shariram Sukha Dukkhanam Bhogayatanam Uchyate. He is talking about the Stula Shariram. Stula Shariram is the physical body. He is giving a description of the physical body. Now, one may question. Advaita says there is no such thing as any of this world and other things. That's what you have been saying all along. Suddenly, why do you want to talk about something that is unreal and then give a description of all these bodies and so on? It's a valid question. And it is attempted only because of the fact that we are not able to get rid of the fact that the world that we see is real. I am limited to this body. We are not able to. This is known as a Vyavaharika Satyam. So actually, there is some kind of a dilution made in this profound teachings. They come down to our level and then try to explain. But ultimately, the aim is you aim for the Paramarthika Satyam, not this Vyavaharika Satyam, not this relative reality. Your attempt should be to realize that ultimate reality. For that, understanding of all these things to some extent will be helpful. Ultimately, they are going to say that all these things are going to get destroyed. And what is indestructible is only that spirit. But before that, they are going to talk about the three bodies. And the first thing is the Stula Sharira. Kalanda Perum Aimbhuta Karyamahum Kalanda Vinaisaranda Kalamam Kalakum Idar Inbam Evayum Pusittarku idam ivudal endriru. Bhagavan says, this body is a place for enjoyment as well as for suffering. And this has come about, this body has been made with Kalanda Perum Aimbhutam. Aimbhutam, the Panchabhuta, Panchamahabhutas. We know them, space, air, Agni, fire, water, finally the earth, the Prithvi Tattvam. The most solid is Prithvi Tattvam and the most subtle is the space Tattvam. From there down to the thing, keeping on becoming more and more grossified, more and more physical, these five elements, big elements. They're all joined together. Kalandam, Kalanda, they all merge together. This process is known as Panchikaranam. This is an involved process. This is not native to Advaita Vedanta, but it has been borrowed from Sankhya Yoga. They have a lot of tattvams. In fact, number of tattvams they mention is so many, in so many different categories. That is why it is known as Sankhya. A lot of numbering goes on there. From the Sankhya Yoga, some of these things have been borrowed by Advaita Vedanta, and he is presenting that in a very simple manner. There is slight differences in many of these things, but overall, this is the picture. Panchikrita Mahabhuta Sambhavam. This physical body is a combination in a particular way of the five great elements. Karma Sanchitam, but the most important thing that is added on to this is our karma. Shariram Sukha Dukkhanam Bhogayatanam. This physical body is the place where all the experiences are to be had. This is a tenement. Ayatanam means a tenement, a house. Bhogayatanam. Bhagavan uses for this tenement, he uses a very clever word. He calls it as kalam. Kalam actually means vessel. It also means something that, transports. Kalam has two different meanings, and both the meanings are taken here in this. This kalam, this vessel, this body is just a vessel. Vessel of what? All the fruits of your karmas of the past ages, they're all kept in this vessel, in this plate. And you are come here to eat all those things. Some of the fruits are going to be extremely bitter. Some of them will be sweet. And some of them will be neutral. But this is something that you have got to eat. Till you eat the whole plate, you are going to be there. The body is going to be there. That is the meaning of this. The karmam that has been gained in the past life, they have all put in your plate. And he says, these five elements, they combine in a particular way to grossify. But this combination being common, why are there so many differences between one person and the other person? Because the combination of all these elements is in a very well-defined manner. The difference comes about because of the karmas that each one has done. He gets a body, a shape, a design, everything is put together by this karma. That's why he says karma sanchitam. This is the most important factor in this bhautika shariram, in this gross body. And then there is a little bit of description about Panchikaranam. I will just give that touch upon that. Panchikaranam is covered in a very detailed manner in many of the books like Tattvopadesham. Panchikaranam happens on what are known as tanmatras. Tanmatras are pure essence of the sensory system. They are the pure essence. They are very, very subtle. From consciousness, we are going to describe how the matter has come about. And in between, it goes through this very subtle phase known as pancha tanmatras, which are going to give rise to the five great elements, pancha mahabhutas. These pancha tanmatras are basically the building blocks of objective reality. They are the building blocks of objective reality. They are very, very subtle. And each pancha tanmatras, each of these tanmatras, they are related to one sense actually. So, how they have envisioned the whole thing is, this world is sensed. So they first talk about the senses before they go to the physical world. They talk about the senses, because unless the senses are there, we have no knowledge of what this world is. If, hypothetically speaking, somebody has all the five senses not there, let us say, in that case, what will be his world vision? Even with one sense being lost, the vision of that particular person of the world will be totally different. So we make our world based upon these indriyas, based upon these senses. So they first talk about this senses. The difference is, we have all the time been saying, last thousands of years, that it is from consciousness that the matters come. We need try to understand consciousness starting from matter. If you want to study the brain cells, the neurologists and these cognitive scientists, They do that study of the matter and try to see how consciousness is there. So many different senses are there. The one that hears cannot see. The one that touches, that feel, cannot be done by any other sense. Each sense does a particular job, but there is one individual inside who says that I am seeing, I am hearing, one particular thing. How these five totally different sense streams, they finally become a subjective experience of an individual. Trying to explain from the matter this subjective experience, it is known as hard problem of consciousness, is being studied now. They say that consciousness is a very hard thing to understand. Hard problem of consciousness. Actually, some scientist who has studied about our Vedanta and other things says actually we should say hard problem of matter. Explaining matter is actually difficult. But we are saying that consciousness is the problem, but matter is something that we are able to see and then study. We are starting from this side. Science is starting from this side. But Vedanta and other our metaphysical systems, they are all starting with consciousness. They are going to the final matter. So the in-between thing, these very subtle essences, they are known as tanmatras. So the five tanmatras are Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Shabdam, sound, hearing. Sparsha, touch, feeling through the skin. We had that feeling. This is Sparsham. The third one is Rupam, the form and the color. This is a vision. Rasa, taste. Taste is this form is associated with Agni, taste is associated with water, and smell is associated with earth. So these five elements are associated with each one of these tanmatras. And the tanmatras themselves are not combined. Tanmatras remain as they are, but they give rise to all these mahabhutas, and these mahabhutas, they combine, they split and recombine. That is known as panchikaranam. So there is a apanchikrita tanmatras and panchikrita mahabhautikam. This bhautika shariram. This panchikritam is, you take, let us start with ether or space. If ether or space, when it actually exists, it does not exist all alone as ether or space. There are other things added on to that in this particular ratio. They say that if it is an ether, half of that element you take, the other half is filled up by 1/8 of all the other four things. 1/8 of each. Water, Agni, all these things, 1/8 of them are also added on to this ether, and together half and half together will become full. One can understand this by this particular very crude example. Five friends, they want to have a picnic. So they decide to go some place, and each one of them wants to bring some food item from his house. Each one brings one item. One fellow brings, let us say, because we are all South Indians, one person wants to bring curd rice, the other one wants to bring sambar rice, and so on. All the five of them, each one a different thing. And when they come to eat lunch, a person who is brought curd rice from his plate, half of it he keeps for himself. The other half he splits into 4 parts and gives it to each one of his other friends. And each person does the same thing. So he gets 1/8 of all the 4 other food items plus his own half curd rice, and together they make a whole meal and they eat. So this is the actual crude way of explaining panchikaranam. This is the way the elements are combining and then make together. The root energies or the subtle energies of the tanmatras, as I said, they're all the building blocks. They are the pure potential of sensory experience before it mixes with the other elements. They are the pure potential of the sensory experience. Each tanmatra, as I said, is associated with a quality that links it to a specific element. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandham. So, This is the way the Bhautika Shariram is made, combination of all the Mahabhutas, aided by the Tanmatras which give the essences, the subtle mode. From the consciousness, there is a subtle phase, and then from the subtle phase, there is going to be this gross phase. This is the way the whole thing is arranged. The most important thing, as I said, was karma. The past karma, they make the major element in getting a body. And they have to be exhausted. Unless you eat whatever is there in the plate. A plate has been given to you, each one is given a plate. And you have got to go through this process. There is no other way. There's a beautiful metaphor in Brihadaranya Upanishad, which gives the example of a king visiting a village. A king wants to visit a village. Or maybe in today's times, you can say a minister wants to go to his constituency. He has announced that he is going to visit on so and so day. So that particular place, small village, will gear up for his visit. And all the people will gather. The man who is running the village, the panchayat head or somebody, would be there. And there will be his assistants, the revenue officials who are, keeping track of how much of crop has grown in this place, how much of this will have to be given to the king and all the thing. No, all these people will be gathering. And there will be people who are there to entertain the king also. There will be dancers, there will be musicians, all these things. All these people are waiting for the king. There's an example given in Brihadaranya Upanishad. And they sight the king's entourage from a distance. And they all say, here he comes, waiting for the king to arrive. And as soon as he arrives, all these activities will begin. The Upanishad says, in a similar manner, all the karmas are awaiting the arrival of the jiva. They're all waiting. And once they sight the jiva, oh, here he comes, they say. They envelop him. He gets a body. There's a beautiful incident connected with Bhagavan's life. Bhagavan is in the habit of reading Mahabhakta Vijayam. Once in a way, he will take a Mahabhakta Vijayam and start reading. And when he tells a story, he becomes all the characters completely, identifies. He has no personality, but he identifies himself with people in front of him. And many times people have talked about how he was not able to proceed with Kannappa Nayanar's story and so on. So here in the Mahabhakta Vijayam, the story here is Prahlada's story. Prahlada, defying his father Hiranyakashipu, he is teaching, he is telling all the students. Previous to that, the teachers were employed by Hiranyakashipu to teach the students that Hiranyakashipu is God. They have to sing my praise. Prahlada does not accept that. He resists. And he continues to only talk about Sriman Narayana and then give songs about Narayana and teaching everybody Narayana is the only God and so on and so forth. And every time the king comes to inspect the class, he is very upset and very, very furious, and then he feels the teachers not doing their job properly. Finally, all the teachers, they run away from the place rather than incur the wrath of the king. Prahlada becomes the teacher. And he teaches them this Narayana alone is God and so on and so forth. One of the students, he goes to Prahlada and tells him, it is okay for you, you are doing something totally against the will of the king. But your father will not do anything to you because you are his son. You are the only son. You are the prince. He will not do anything to you. But his anger will be on us. What will happen to us? We will be left without any food, without any shelter. We don't want to take that risk, they say. When students tell Prahlada about it, I believe Prahlada gave out a big laughter. He laughed aloud. And then he said, whatever is required for you to eat is already served. whatever you have to eat, what he is saying is that whatever has to happen, you cannot change now. It has already happened. It's all been served for you. You only have to eat it. So it seems Prahalada gave a big laugh and then he said this. When he came to this place, it seems Bhagavan laughed out, just like Prahalada would have done. He identified himself so totally. And the story goes that all those in the meditation hall, when they heard Bhagavan laughing like that, I believe there was a big thrill going through their bodies. They felt that they were transported to that Puranic times. They were in Prahlada's presence. So realistic was Bhagavan's storytelling. Anyway, this is a side story. Main story is whatever is required for us in this life is already served. Karma you cannot change. You have got to go through karma. This is something that we have got to really understand when we want to do this. Is there no cure? Will be the next question. Prayer won't help. If karma alone is going to do everything for us, what about prayer? What is the status of prayer? What is the position of prayer? Praying for grace of Bhagavan, will it not work? That question will come to us. Definitely prayers will be efficacious. What Bhagavan says is, whatever you are supposed to do will be done by your body, because our body has been programmed with these karmas, will be done. But that internal element is there. Then that subtle body, it has got a freedom. The bhautika sariram has to undergo. But inside, there is a person who feels that I am so and so, I am helpless, and there is this great being, I have to pray to him. There is something there. This prayer is helpful, and his grace will flow without disturbing whatever has to happen through the karmic bondage. This will not be disturbed, but internally, your mind will be programmed differently. What changes is your mind. Now, we have seen this, in our, when we are children, today also we can see children, some of them, they do not like some vegetables or fruits. When you serve vegetables or fruits that they don't like, they would not eat unless the whole thing is removed from the plate. Otherwise, they will not start eating. But as we grow older, as we become mature, we accept. In fact, we may even start tasting. After all, what is that? So whatever is there that we initially rejected, mind changes and we start accepting. This is what happens. The miracle happens in the mind, and the surrendered attitude gives you this freedom. Bhagavan says, you always have the freedom not to identify with the body. That freedom is never taken away from you at any time. Because you identify with the body, you have got to undergo whatever the body has to undergo. But you have the freedom not to identify with the body. At a lesser level, our acceptance, when we pray, maybe whatever is remaining does not change, whatever is happening in the body does not change, but our attitude to these circumstances, they will undergo a change. You become more, tolerant of whatever, all the circumstances that are there. This is what is called as titiksha. Titiksha develops. He gives you, and he also gives this example, if the world is full of thorns and stones and other things, you do not want to walk on a thorny surface or a surface with all small stones. You do not spread a big leather on the whole world and then walk on it. You put a small piece of leather in your sole. Your foot, you call it as a shoe. You put that, and it is as good as that. The rest of the world has not changed. Circumstances have not changed, but you have fortified yourself. It is like inoculation. You have undergone some vaccination. You become more immune. This is what happens. So Bhagavan says prayer will be definitely helpful. In fact, once in one instance, he says, even I have prayed for my mother's recovery. It is not to say that all that is not possible at all and you are doomed. This is what it is. No. This is available, but the problem that we have is that we want a change to our liking. We tell him, do it in this particular manner, then only I will accept it. That is our problem. He tries to do everything for you all the time. The problem is that we are dictating to him. No, not this way, but this way. Leave it to him. That's what Bhagavan says. Leave it to him. He knows what is best. Anyway, karma sanchitam. This body is here to act out whatever is destined for it to act out. Karma sanchitam. Shariram sukha dukkhanam bhogayatanam uchyate. And then he goes to the next, I will just touch upon the next verse, which is about the subtle body. In the subtle body, he is going to say, Pancha prana mano buddhi dashendriya samanvitam apanchikrita bhutottam. Thank you. Apanchikrita bhutottam sukshmangam bhoga sadhanam. This sukshma shariram, which is not the same as the shariram that you see. It is an invisible body. It is not seen by the eyes. It is invisible. And it is pancha prana mano buddhi dashendriya samanvitam apanchikrita bhutottam. Before the panchikaranam happens, before the combination of all these elements happen, that subtle phase with the tanmatras, the subtle essences, they form the subtle body. And the composition of the subtle body, according to Bhagavan, Vayukkal aindu pancha pranas, 5 different types of pranas are there. Prana, apana, udana, samana, vyana, all these are the 5. And each one has got a function, the respiratory function, digestive function, circulatory function. For each one of them, there is a prana that is associated, the 5 of them. These 5 pranas, manam buddhi, add the mind, add the buddhi, and also ஈரைந்தாய் ஏயும் கருவிகள். These கருவிகள் are the jnanendriyas and the karmendriyas. Jnanendriyas are hearing, sight, touch, all these things. These are all the jnanendriyas. And the karmendriyas are for the body, and which actually are organs of action. Organs of action in the sense, grasping, hand is there. Walk, speech is there. Like that. Locomotion, legs are there. So these 5 activities are known as the karmendriyas. Karmendriyas, pranendriyas, and this apanchikrita, this tanmatras, these are all 15, plus manas and buddhi. Totally there are 17. And what is the difference between this and the gross body? This subtle body is the one actually is a site for all our experiences. The body may come into interaction with the world, but body only conveys the sensory information to the internal thing. There is one fellow sitting inside who says, I don't like this. I like this. I like so-and-so person's music performance, but I don't like the other. Those kinds of things, that actual experience happens in this subtle body. It is the site for all experiences, human experiences. It's the site of all them. Not only that, this subtle body is the one that is going to transmigrate along with the causal body, which has gathered all the vasanas and then keeping it in the seed form within itself. When the life goes from the body, the subtle body, together with all the vasanas from the causal body, they transmigrate into a new life. So go from one life to another life. கலவாத நுண்பூத காரியமாம் போகத்து உலவாத சாதனமாமோர். Ulavada is an additional flavor given by Bhagavan, which is not there in the original thing. The original thing, this, but Ulavada means Vatrada. It never dries up. Ularada, Vatrada. What Bhagavan means is this subtle body keeps on accumulating karmas, keeps on accumulating vasanas because of the desires. Because of the desires, you take a body. Unfulfilled desires of the past life gives you a body. In this life, we continue to do the thing, crave for so many other things. And there will be unfulfilled desires at the end of this life also. And the cycle goes on and on and on. That's why Bhagavan says, Vatrada, Ulavada. There is no end to this. We keep on absorbing something or the other, keep on moving from one body to the other body. The only way to stop this movement is we have to dry up. The inner body should get dried up. There should be no desires left in the mind. When that stage comes, when there is no desire at all in the mind, everything has gone, then you do not accumulate anything more. That is the situation that we should all aim for. So here he says, Panchaprana Manobuddhi Dashendriya Samanvitam Apanchikrita Bhutottam Sukshmangam Bhoga Sadhanam. This subtle body is also called as Ativahika Shariram or also the Linga Shariram. These are two other names given. Ativahika, one that moves. Vahanam, vehicle, and Vahanam. Very similar words. This Ativahika Shariram is a word that is used in Yoga Vasishtam to mention about, to refer to this subtle body. But it's also known as Linga Shariram, Sukshma Shariram. This Sukshma Shariram is the more closer layer with Manas and Buddhi. So we will see more about it in the next session. With this, I will conclude today. Thank you.